Hi out there, people. This is Nick Sequeira, Denver's favorite mail order cartoonist. I often claim to be, or I'm pretty sure I'm the only asexual out here, and in the Queen City of the Plains, Denver, Colorado. And I think it is true. There's 700,000 people, and it's the 19th largest city in the country, and I have yet to meet a single asexual out here. Doesn't happen too often. Sure, sure. By asexual, for the purposes of definition here, I mean someone who is fundamentally incapable on a psychological and physiological level of experiencing sexual attraction. The same definition, of course, would apply to aromantics, of which I also am one, being someone who is physiologically incapable. Uh, the one I hear tossed around the most is Aero Ace, Aero slash Ace. I think that's an applicable term. Yeah, because it's for both. Right. The reverse term. Not all. It should be noted. Not all asexuals prefer. Not all asexuals prefer monogamy. In fact, I don't think most asexuals even have a particular preference between monogamy or polyamory or anything like that because they don't really put in the effort, so to speak, to try and form any kind of cohesive relationship with anyone. But in your case, you would be an amata romantic and an allosexual, which is just about everyone. From amata romantic is the opposite of aromantic. Allosexual is the opposite of asexual. So you're an amata romantic allosexual. Amata romantic, as far as I'm amato romantic. AMATO. Right. Yes. Mhm. Well, see that's the paradoxic aspect. That's the paradoxic aspect of being asexual and aromantic because you don't typically utilize terminology like partner dating, stuff like that. If I were because you have an inordinate tendency to establish your own personhood and your own being entirely on your own terms. You can't really use anyone to do that for you. And so, if I had anything, it would be a platonic friendship, preferably with a girl. I find that girls are much easier to get along with and much more emotionally in touch with themselves and all. So, sure. It could be an asexual guy if I came across any, but from everything I've dealt with, I do prefer having female friends. And preferably she would be asexual, aromantic, just like me, also equally incapable of experiencing sexual, romantic tension or attraction, and just call each other friends and do stuff all the time, and go to movie. They watch shows, whatever it is pals do, but never have sex. She'd never want to have sex with anyone. I'd never want to have sex with anyone, and we'd get along pretty well because, all things considered, we'd be about the only right people for each other. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, tertiary friends are fine so long as so long as we're each other's best friend, but tertiary friends are fine. It would work out the best, of course, if those friends were also asexual slash aromantic. But if they're not, just so long as they don't seduce my friend or anything, and try and screw the friendship up, and kind of take all the time and attention. Right, right. If everyone's asexual, then everyone's on a completely equal playing field. Yeah. Right. The way I see it, I want to be the whole package for someone, and whenever I'm reminded of my inadequacy and my ability to engage in sexual intercourse, it just reminds me that I'm lacking something or I'm missing something, which is the obvious implication, the logical conclusion that one would draw. Because if I wasn't, then she wouldn't need to go out and get a boyfriend, and yeah, it's quite a blow to the ego. No, I've never had a main partner, but I do think I do think that all too often asexual people do tend to kind of wall themselves off from the wider world. So I do try and get out there and interact with as many different types of people as possible. And if there's someone who I really think I could be great friends with, and we could really get along and have a great time, even if they're not asexual, I'll give them a chance. I'll certainly provide them with the opportunity. I'm not closed minded or anything. And I think it doesn't really make much sense to only interact with asexuals, considering how few of them there are.
Okay, so yeah, thank you. Unfortunately, I was literally not coming in. Can you hear me now, Memes of Destruction? Apparently, I had not.
I can hear you fine.
Yeah, thankfully, you can
I can
hear
hear you
me.
fine.
Unfortunately, the audience could not hear me. So, since I have
Ah,
such a small
okay.
audience, it's very difficult to find those types of problems. However, I just added a microphone, and now it seems to be working. Okay, so we got all
All
of
right,
your
fine.
answers. I can edit in later audio or some kind of thing that we can do. Okay, good. Yeah, so we can hear each other now.
Sure, do
Thankfully,
whatever you
again,
want.
you came through totally fine. So and that's the most important
Okay,
part.
fine.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
just send over the audio file, however
Yeah,
it's correctly
I'll
edited.
send over you the whole thing as it's done, and then I'm going to we'll figure it out later. So okay,
Okay.
now okay, so to get back to what we were talking about, I wanted to make a comparison to if I have if I actually am I try to be a vegetarian. And I have friends who are not vegetarians, but I like to eat I like to encourage them to be vegetarians, but I don't believe
Mm-hmm.
that it's a failure on my part if they choose to engage in their desire to uh, have
Right.
carnivorous food. So why does that feel like when you have a platonic friend who isn't your partner, or your main best friend, has sex while they're a what did you say, a matosexual or ace
They're a monoromantic or allosexual.
yeah, allosexual is
A
what I meant. Yeah,
monoromantic or allosexual. Yeah,
yeah,
they're
yeah,
allosexual.
yeah. Why do you feel that why do you feel the burden to be everything for them in a need that they have that you don't have, that you literally can't fulfill?
Well, because if you couldn't experience if you couldn't experience a romantic or sexual
Mm-hmm.
relationship, then platonic relationships become the most fundamental and important type of
Well,
relationship
they're,
it's
they're the only
possible to
relationship that's
experience.
possible at that point.
Right, it's kind of
Yeah,
a
yeah.
biological necessity.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a result, um you kind of have to be very invested and involved with your friendships. You can't really
Mm-hmm.
take any half measures. And yeah, if someone has sex while they're your friend, you do feel as if you're married to them, and you just walked in on them having having an affair down at the Super 8
Yeah.
motel, and it's
But
not too
that's the
much.
point,
Yeah,
is
exactly.
these people
It's
aren't
equivalent.
your partner though. These are just your friends. Like, these are the ones who aren't your best friend. These are regular old acquaintances. Like, even
But
your
the thing
sister,
is,
for instance.
if theoretically you can the idea of romance, and the idea of that is, well, you can go out into the world, you can find anyone you want. There's so
Hmm.
many people, so many fish in the sea, there's so many types.
Yeah.
And the beauty of it apparently is that you can feel some kind of unity with the human species, in that when you have sex, it's this magical, wonderful thing, and you
Hmm.
can really, like,
Have you ever
bond
had
with them,
sex?
and you can
If I can
remind
ask,
yourself.
are you
No,
no?
I've never had sex. I am a
Hmm.
complete virgin at 22
Okay.
because I've
So
never felt the
yeah,
desire to
you
have it.
don't want to. You don't
I'm
need
not
it.
what I'm not what in asexual circles is referred to as sex repulsed. I'm pretty sure I'm sex neutral. I don't
Yeah, makes sense.
particularly care one way or the other about sex.
Hmm.
And if I am asked to have sex, and we're both completely consenting, we would. But I don't think it would be much fun for either of us, because I would not be invested the entire time. It'd
Hmm.
be kind of less like someone was having sex with me, and more like someone was doing
Yeah,
sex
they
to
were
me,
masturbating
which
using you or something like that, and you had to
is the
just sort of
purpose
wait
of
through it.
sex in and of itself.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's true, I guess.
Uh,
But yeah, I
yeah.
just, I'm confused because you're not, as you said, sex repulsed, but sex neutral. Why you feel that it is your responsibility to prevent, to release others from their desire to have sex. It just.
Because if someone didn't feel sexual attraction or sexual tension like how I don't, they'd realize it's an extremely freeing experience.
I agree.
The way I see it, sex is a weakness that prevents great achievements and mental things from happening. Like, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, if there's a guy and he'll have sex with a hot girl for anything, and he'll do things that he wouldn't do otherwise, that's a weakness. If there's a girl and she'll do anything for a hot guy she can have sex with that
Mm-hmm.
she wouldn't do otherwise, that's a weakness. Because sexual intercourse is a process that requires, on a fundamental level, the suspension of rational thought.
Mm.
And that's something that I just don't necessarily feel all right with, because I like thinking rationally, and I like combing through stuff, and I can't give in to any sort of desires that someone else might have. But in the process, I find that I'm extremely,
Mm-hmm.
in being entirely detached from romantic or sexual processes, I find that I'm extremely free.
Mm-hmm.
And I just like to kind of share the existence of not having sex with people,
Mm-hmm.
because it's great. You never have to worry about what someone thinks of you, or your body, or anything.
It
You're
is.
just kind of
I
a
would agree.
yeah.
But you
It,
literally
it's it's
can't.
it's a
You
pretty chill
can't.
time.
But like this, in the same way that you don't feel sexual attraction, people do. You can't cure that for them. You know, like they still
Well, the way
you
I
can
see
still
it,
wait. If you let me finish 1 second, people can have there like I totally agree that people's sex drives and desire for intimacy and stuff can go out, can cause problems in their lives, but they also can be great, like huge benefits in their lives, and bring people closer together and allow experiences that are on a totally different level, as you say, compared to a platonic love. Like a positive sexual relationship is just another form of interaction. It's just like going to the movies or playing checkers. It's just another form
well,
of
not really,
interaction.
because when you're playing chess, your dopamine isn't dialed up to 9,000, or when you're
Hmm.
watching a movie. I mean, some people might
But
have a
sex might
response
be. That
to a
sounds like a
movie
good
or
thing.
something that's
Having your
people might
dopamine
have a
dial up
response
really good is
that's
good.
comparable.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I
Can
think
be.
that sex is ultimately a crutch and an addiction. And as
Mm-hmm.
someone who will never experience it, I
Mm-hmm.
have only ever had negative experiences with sex. There is literally nothing positive about it.
Well, you
So
said
the
you've
way
had
I
no
see it, it's kind
experiences
of
at all,
like,
though.
right.
So how can you
If
have negative
someone was
experiences if you've never had any experiences?
Well, I mean, I've had experiences where someone will choose someone who they can have sex with over someone like me who they can't have sex with. So
How is that a
overall,
negative
I'm
experience? That's what you want.
it's a negative experience caused by sex. It's not a negative experience literally having sex, but sex is the
Mm-hmm.
root cause of the negative experience. So I would like to introduce someone to the fantastic existence of a completely platonic, hormone-free time where
Mm-hmm.
we just do things and there's none of that sex stuff and we don't get up to any of that. Because the way I see it,
Mm-hmm.
uh, with sex, it is only a net negative. There will never be any positive aspect to the existence of sex in my
Mm-hmm.
life. In other people's
Yeah.
lives, it may be a totally great, wonderful, magical thing. But in my
Mm-hmm.
life,
Well, that's what we're
particularly,
getting to.
there is
Keep going.
nothing positive or fun or interesting about
Mm-hmm.
sex. And the way I see it, it's like if you got married to someone and they were a total virgin, they'd never had sex before, you
Mm-hmm.
slowly kind of guide them into sex to the point where they feel comfortable. I would do the same, except I would slowly guide someone out of sex until they were no longer reliant on it at all,
Mm-hmm.
and it never even crossed their mind. Because
Yeah.
the way I see it, sex is just a hobby, like playing chess, or
Mm-hmm.
think of it like if you're in a relationship with someone, if someone's my friend, they eat loud a lot, that bothers me. Uh, I can say stop eating loud. The same way that if they have sex a lot, I can say you might just want to give up this sex hobby of yours because it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of destructive to your mind. It's kind of destructive to our friendship, and you could have a lot more. The great thing about a friendship as opposed to a romantic relationship
Mm-hmm.
is that it's much less volatile because there's no pheromonal transfer involved.
Mm-hmm.
There's very little risk, and it can theoretically last way longer than any romantic relationship could. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, as I see it, I think someone could have a great deal of fun if they just gave up on sex and just said, hey, I'll hang out with Nick every day and we'll have a good time. No sex, but
Mm-hmm.
we'll be having a great time otherwise.
Well, what's confusing to me, I'm hearing you quite. I believe I'm hearing you rather clearly. But what is confusing to me is that this is first of all, it's hard. I mean, you have to understand that since you don't feel sex and you cannot get a positive experience about it, you do not understand the desire or whatever, so you can't see how it's good. So it's perfectly natural for you to see it as is. But my main focus on that is that you seem to want to do this for the logical need for it and to fulfill things that way, but you do understand emotional fulfillment as well because you are looking for somebody who has the same worldview that you have. So you do
Right.
understand the
Exactly.
value of emotional connection, even if it's not romantic. But or
Well,
rather, what I
yes,
mean is emotional
because
fulfillment that isn't quite logical, but is
right.
still quite
Emotional,
beneficial.
mental, platonic fulfillment.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what I'm after is to be capable of dissecting, analyzing the process of sexual reproduction from a neutral, detached, third-party perspective with someone.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of boring to do that just by myself, so I'd
Yeah.
prefer to meet someone who also has no idea what sex is or why anyone has it,
Yeah.
and together we can sort of point at it and laugh about how ridiculous it all is, and just kind of say, "Wow, we're
Mm-hmm.
glad we're not like that.
Yeah.
Let's go play Monopoly or whatever." It'd
that
be a
would
great
that's I
time.
really hope you get that. I what I really want to focus on is this sort of need to almost like to bring people to your side rather than just let live and let live.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
Right.
why what
Uh,
like what if
for
somebody
decent
came to you,
explanation.
and I'm sure this has happened, forgive me, let me just finish before you respond really quick, as I imagine this has happened a lot. How does it feel to you when people come to you and be like, well, why don't you try having sex? It's awesome, it's great, why don't you at least do it?
Well,
How does that feel
the
when
thing
someone
is,
tries to convince you the other way?
the thing is, I'm relatively open-minded. So if one of my platonic female friends came up to me, we were completely
Mm-hmm.
alone and we were both entirely sober, and she said, "Hey, do you want to try?" I would say, "Hey, maybe I'll consider that. Maybe the next time I'm around you, maybe we will try."
Mm-hmm.
But more often than not, all that's happened is everyone continues to tell me how great it is.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, nobody is willing to remotely consider having it with me because, and I understand this being asexual,
Mm-hmm.
sex is not something to be treated lightly or tossed around because it can create immense psychological damage.
Mm-hmm.
And I would never have it with someone who wasn't entirely 100% sure they wanted to have it with me. I treat it with an immense weight.
Mm-hmm.
But no one's willing to show me how great it is, and also no one's willing to just stop having it. So, I'm kind of like, well, why not just stop having it? Because I can't
Do
be
you have
around
a lot
people who
of
just,
platonic
yeah, I
female
can't just be
friends?
around people who continuously talk about how great this hobby of theirs is,
Yeah, that's
but
annoying.
also just don't ever have it with. It's like
Yeah.
if you're just taken to a football game, but you don't give a shit about the football game, but everyone's
Mm-hmm.
just like, let's go to the football game. I
Yeah.
don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Uh, the way I see it, the benefits of not having sex far
Mm-hmm.
outweigh the negatives. For
Yeah.
instance, in a hypothetical
Let
world
me
where,
finish. Hold on. While you were on that football game thing, though, but like, what is the problem? Why do you feel like let down when your friends who want to go see football just go on it without you, and then you guys hang out together another day with no football?
because we wouldn't be hanging out together another day. Like, let's say that the football stadium is a mental prison that they lock themselves into, a
So.
la a romantic relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So the more they see their boyfriend, the less they're going to be seeing me because their boyfriend is able
Mm-hmm.
to release pheromones and engage in the process of pheromonal
What if the
transfer with
three
them,
of
and
you
I
live
just can't do
together?
that. I would never live with someone who is having sex with my friend.
Okay.
I might live with a friend, but I'd never live with someone who is having sex with
What
my
about
friend because
well?
I think that's a patently immoral behavior.
Hmm. Oh well, that's different. If you think that if you don't like it, that's one thing. But calling sex immoral is a bit of a
I think sex between two
stretch.
consenting adults is fine, but I think that
Mm-hmm.
seducing someone who's in a friendship with someone who literally cannot have sex and then stealing them away, I think that's an immoral behavior, the same as, breaking up a marriage or something like that.
It would
I
be
think it's absolutely vile.
if they I mean, but if the person agreed to be seduced, then like if they had this agreement with you, it's one thing, I suppose. But like, okay, when you make friends, does this how quickly does this come up? Do you bring up that, like, hey, I like hanging out with you, or
I
like we've
bring
been
up
talking?
immediately that I'm
Mm-hmm.
asexual, but
Yeah, of
most
course.
people just assume that means I want to be left alone. They
Mm-hmm.
don't consider that perhaps I could, offer them like emotional support or be a shoulder to cry on, but just never have sex with them. That never really crosses their
That
mind.
seems surprising to me. How do you have like a bunch of friends, male and female, or at least a bunch of female friends?
I have a ton of friends who consistently ignore me on a regular basis. I can't
That's
say I've ever had
annoying.
a best friend who is a consistent presence in my life
Unfortunately, I
because
kind of agree.
specifically,
Mm-hmm.
as you can imagine, being gay or being lesbian or being trans, that seems to be pretty easy to make friends around here because there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of that. Um,
Yeah, the ace
Asexual
community
people
is
are
not
only about
as
zero
not as
yeah,
big.
asexual people are only about 0.1% of the population
Very
is
small.
the
Yeah.
usual statistic, so it's
Mm-hmm.
very alienating.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's still part of the queer
there's very little
community, though,
common
right? Although
ground.
I imagine there's a lot of discrimination interwise, because I think asexuals are probably within the queer community, like similar to bisexuals. They're not viewed. They can have some in group hierarchy issues. I can see.
I went to an asexual support group.
Hmm.
Nobody there was ace. Everyone was just trans, but like the place that put it on had to be like, oh well, we have to have an asexual support group. And I went to it, and I didn't get any support, and it wasn't worth anything
You went
because
to an asexual
there's no
support
asexual
group
group.
and you were the only ace person there?
Yeah, everyone
That's
else was
crazy. That's
yeah,
baffling. That is
yeah.
so what
The thing
I'm so
is,
sorry for you. That's great. That must be
the
so
thing is,
frustrating.
nobody.
Yeah.
It's not that frustrating. I'm used to it. I've become kind of numb to it.
Still
You
though.
have to eventually, at a certain point, as an asexual,
Mm,
you have to become completely numb, and you can't actually
mm,
develop any like emotional connection to anyone in the same way that someone who's romantic could. You
mm,
can't actually care about anyone because all you ever feel is complete disappointment when you're reminded of the supposed universal constant of sex.
I
I
think you're
think
just
that
I think you're just like I think the I mean again I'm not you but I think the biggest problem is just that like it's okay for other people to have sex, you know, like it's just you know you like you
I think
you
it's a
shouldn't feel
moral
slighted
failure.
that way even if you
I don't
feel
really
like it
feel
is on
slighted, but
them.
it is a negative character trait that lessens the person a great deal in my eyes because
Mm-hmm.
it like I said, it requires the suspension of rational thought, which is probably one of the things that I value the most,
But you still are also
because it's really the
suspending
only
your own
thing that
rational thought by seeking a partner who views things similarly to you. So you don't have a complete issue with that.
I imagine that there is. If there isn't, then I'll just go on like
Mm-hmm.
this the remainder of my life, which is fine.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it's irrational to assume that someone could give up sex. I think that would be pretty easy because I certainly have never given a shit about it.
Would you say that
Um,
you
and
close? Oh, go ahead. Finish what you're saying.
I would say that in a hypothetical world where nobody had sex,
Mm-hmm.
it would be there. The pros far outweigh the cons. There would be no such thing as sexual assault because nobody would be having sex, so let alone
Mm-hmm.
there'd be no sexual assault. Pedophilia, rape goes way down, and STDs. There'd be
Yeah.
no STDs. Gonorrhea, AIDS, chlamydia, all of that stuff would no
Mm-hmm.
longer be transmitted in the slightest.
Mm-hmm.
AIDS would literally go extinct. It would have no
Obviously.
more
Yeah.
hosts to feed on.
I mean, it goes
Yeah.
without saying that
So
there is obviously you know artificial insemination and stuff, but up until recently that hasn't been possible. So it does also obviously go without saying, but should be mentioned that sex literally is required for reproduction. So it has been a
yeah,
necessity for a very long time. It's
I
only
think in
really
general,
recently
and
that
this
this has
is
become a possibility.
well, I think people generally think far too much about the survival of the human species or large abstract concepts like that, and they should probably
Understandable.
just focus on their own lives. I
Hmm.
certainly never consider creating a new life. That sounds like a tremendous amount of hassle,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's not appealing at all to me. But I would say that if just half the people on Earth stopped having sex, I mean, still, that's half of sexual assault gone down, half of
Hmm.
STDs gone down, and all that negative stuff could be completely avoided if people just stopped having sex because it sounds stupid. And there's so many things that are wrong and stupid with it.
Do you make
So
friends and then sort of and everything's fine and then you find yourself closing off to them if you find out that they've had sex?
I
And
don't really close off to them. They more so close off to me. Well, it's not
you
like
sure?
I find out that they've had sex. I operate on the base assumption that everyone around me is constantly having sex without my knowledge or consent.
Mm-hmm.
But
It's
like for
happening less
instance,
and
I'll make a
less
friend.
all the time. People are
Yeah,
actually
I'll make a
having less
friend,
sex ever.
and she'll be like, a great friend first for a while. Then
Mm-hmm.
out of nowhere, here comes Mr. Boyfriend. Hey, here's Mr. Boyfriend. I never
Mm-hmm.
considered how this would affect our friendship, but I
Yeah.
just went out and got a boyfriend,
Mm-hmm.
and then she'll just start. It's not even a conscious thing necessarily.
Yeah.
It's kind of genetically programmed. That once you have a boyfriend, you'll really show him off and be like, here, hug up next to me, let's
Yeah.
kiss, let's smooch, all of this.
Yeah. You may
And
not be
I just
surprised.
noticed that.
Yeah, you may not be surprised to hear that a lot of friendships have that issue, even with entirely, you know, sexual, allosexual people. I do
I'm
keep
sure
getting,
they do,
yeah,
but
because
I'm sure
people
it's a
close
lot
off.
easier
Yeah.
when
Hmm.
one can be emotionally validated and supported by a girlfriend or whatever on their own.
Hmm.
Aside from the friendship, and the friendship isn't like the central tenet of one's existence. I think it would be a
Okay,
lot easier
I
in
have
that
an
case
idea.
to.
I have a thought.
Yeah.
What if because I think this is sort of how you view sex a little bit. So what if like vampires were real? And you could
Right.
like be friends with one and they could go out in the daylight, but the thing is they need to feed on blood, like no matter, like at some point they need to do it. It is not good, it's bad, you know, we don't like it, it's not a good thing, but like some people just have that like compulsion and need. would you be able
I
to
think
be
that it
friends with
would
somebody like that?
reduce the human species to the level of an animal, and I don't believe that the human
Mm,
species. I believe that the human species is technically an animal, but I believe that
they are, yeah.
we have the
We are.
remarkable capacity of sentience and free
Mm-hmm.
will and
Mm-hmm.
decision making, and we can make decisions like, hey, this girl's on heroin. Hey, this girl's drunk. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
this girl's not in the position to have sex right now, so there just won't be any
Mm-hmm.
sex. I
Yeah.
think that people can make rational decisions about when is not the correct time to have sex,
Mm-hmm.
if and when at all sex does occur. And yeah, I just think it's very reductive to reduce the human consciousness and especially like autonomy and free will down to that level.
Is
I, I
there?
I I do
Mm-hmm.
I am currently writing about vampires, and
Oh,
I think
I
historically
figured,
vampires have been described as far too attractive and far too given
yeah.
into sex. I mean, they're dead.
Yeah,
So in
they
my
are.
mythology, all my vampires are
That would be
asexual
interesting.
because
Yeah, I
yeah,
had an
because
idea of a
obviously if
fictional
you're
vampire thing. We could talk about some other time maybe. But actually, which brings me up to what I was going to say was, you seem to be, yeah. Whenever you talk about these hypothetical friends of yours, they always seem to be female. What about like
right.
do you have male friends who are also like some like are you able to be friends with somebody who's a guy who could be potentially a really close friends of yours who wants to have sex and stuff, but they just aren't able to get a girlfriend and just can't ever have sex, they just by
Well, that
happenstance.
doesn't really interest me. See,
Hmm.
guys, I view them as my adversaries because if they are romantically or sexually interested
Adversaries.
in girls,
I'm listening.
yeah, adversaries, exactly. Opponents in
But
a conflict.
you're
Because
not
if
trying to have sex though. But go on, come on, continue.
they're not trying to have sex, but
Hmm.
they're I'm not trying to have sex with them,
Yeah.
but they are my competitors because they're trying to be romantically involved with the same girls that I'm trying to be platonically involved with.
Okay.
So I don't think I have too much in common with them. And
I
they'll only
think,
talk about how they can't get a girlfriend or
yeah,
heartbreak or all this stuff that I can't relate to at all. Whereas
yeah,
girls
that
will
can be
talk about
annoying.
like how their boyfriends are jerks, how
Uh-huh.
their boyfriends dump them or whatever, which is far more relatable to me because I know that I would never do that because I'm nobody's boyfriend. So,
Yeah. But I just I don't know. I feel like you would be related to the, well, you're not looking, well, but you're, no, I feel like you would relate to the guys who can't get girlfriends because while you're not looking for a girlfriend, you're looking for a partner who is a platonic female life partner of yours, and they are looking for
not
the
even
same thing, but
necessarily a life partner, maybe a couple years. And I'd never refer to them as a partner because like I have I've been around people who are like girls who are like lesbians and are very
mm-hmm.
cool and know absolutely that I'm not sexually or romantically attracted to them. They're not to me. And if I called them a partner or something, they would be extremely offended by that because that term denies one agency and it just kind of
Mm-hmm.
reduces one to one's relationship to another person. I'm looking for a very driven, sovereign individual who knows exactly what she wants out of life and doesn't take any shortcuts and puts in all the work and really has a great deal of gusto to her.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I don't think I would be able to relate all
How
that
do
much
you have
to
a lot of
some
friends who
guy.
are lesbians? Because that might actually be good,
There are
although
a
it would
lot of
lose sex.
lesbians, and I don't nearly mind enough when they're some lesbian like, oh, here's my girlfriend who's a lesbian. But
Uh-huh.
as much as like with the guys, because the guys just generally tend to be complete jerks out here. Denver is a very isolated environment, and I imagine all the guys are extremely lonely, and I just can't really relate to the guy type drive to dominate or conquer or
Hmm.
like that, which seems to be pretty much
That
the
sounds
prevalent and prevailing
surprising
attitude out here.
considering you just referred to every male person on Earth as your adversary. So that is kind of funny that you would say something like that.
Well, not the gay ones,
Yeah,
not the gay ones,
not the
but
gay ones, of course,
yeah, I
but
mean all the straight guys who have girlfriends out here.
yeah.
So, as I understand it, your position is that the problem is not necessarily the existence of sex and obviously all the psychological problems that come from sexual tension
Mm-hmm.
and the forfeiture of free will and rational thought. But you think the problem is that people aren't receptive enough to polyamory. So would you care to kind of
Well, we could go into
Explain.
my side of the spectrum, and that's a totally different conversation. We could go all into that, but I came here to get yours. But if you want to do that, that's fine. Because my
Okay.
goal,
Yeah,
I want to get along with as many people as possible. I want to have as many positive acquaintances and friends
I see.
with as many people as possible.
I
Yeah.
see.
So I
I see.
actually I've been thinking like I feel like if we continued, like it would be fun to be friends, but I wouldn't be able to be this person for you because yeah, I'm a sexual person. However, I haven't had sex in a very long time. It's also I wanted to mention I'm an addict, so I had an opioid addiction, and there was an interesting time I remember because what opioids do is they lower your sex drive, and there was an actual time when I felt very close to asexual, and I do agree that it was like wow, it does make it a lot easier to focus on goals that aren't related to interpersonal relationships. So I totally do understand and kind of envy that a little bit in your in
Well,
your
I mean,
experience. But I do also
yeah,
having.
I wouldn't say it's I wouldn't say it's necessarily getting worth getting hooked on opioids
No, it's
to
absolutely
avoid feeling
not. No, but it provided a unique insight that I wish that I could provide to you. Like it would be really nice for you to understand sexual attraction and romantic compulsion, just so then you could bet and then you could turn it off and then be like, okay, now I have a better understanding of how other people feel.
right, but I never
You
can
can't,
because
yeah.
it's a sexual orientation and those are
Hmm.
fixed from birth,
Those are, yeah.
and I've never experienced
Well, for most people,
anything
anyway.
remotely approaching a
Mm.
sexual impulse or thought.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah. So, what if you were friends with a girl and a guy who were dating, or a girl and a girl who were both dating, and stuff like that, and they just. So wait. So you don't like being excluded during the sex time, right? You guys want to like hang out 24/7, and you just don't want there to be that 5, 10, 20, half an hour long time where sex happens,
oh,
right?
it's not just 5:20 half an hour. It's
Like
like every single day, and then I might get to see my friend like once every 3 months or something, which I don't think is remotely conducive to a healthy friendship. I'd
yeah.
want to see my friend as much as she sees her boyfriend, but
Mm-hmm.
she sees her boyfriend so often that it like literally blocks out the entire rest of the world to her,
Mm.
and I don't think that's very cool,
What
and
happened?
I
I
think
mean,
it's
but a lot of
place.
times people. I mean, but what if you make friends with the boyfriend because he doesn't see you as a threat? Because obviously you're not going to try to bang his girlfriend, and she's not going to try to
Right, but he
get.
does see me as a threat because I do want to spend as much time alone with his girlfriend as he wants to spend alone with her, and he will always take precedence over me. The problem is
That's
that
true.
it's uneven. It's unequal. As
I
I said,
do. I have.
if if I had an asexual friend who was a girl,
Uh huh.
and she had an asexual friend who was a guy, and
Mm-hmm.
none of us were having sex with any of us at any point in time, and we were all just a complete triad of pals,
Mm-hmm.
that'd be fine.
Yeah.
Just so long as I knew that nobody was romantic or sexual with anyone, and it was all just for fun. But if
Yeah.
anyone felt any semblance of romantic or sexual attraction, that kind of throws the whole cookies out with the bathwater there,
Yeah.
because the dynamic has shifted. And the
Yeah.
problem with sexual and romantic relationships that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't apply to platonic ones is
Mm-hmm.
that there is a transactional power dynamic at play.
There can
And
be. There isn't
what that
always, but
does,
yes. I'm gonna let you go.
there is, see, people want to discard gender roles, but the source of
Mm-hmm.
gender roles is and always will be sex.
Yeah.
Because
Mm-hmm.
if you can seduce someone with feminine traits, or you can
Yeah.
seduce someone with masculine traits, then you are putting yourselves above them. You are
Mm-hmm.
destroying equality. You are destroying an equal footing that you're on in favor of a power dynamic where you can manipulate and use someone to your own will. And that's something I would never want to do with any of
Well,
my
not,
friends
but no,
because
yeah,
ideally
it
sex is
can be that, but
non-transactional.
most of the time it's just, oh, I think this person's attractive. I want them to find me attractive too. It's not like, oh, I want to use my. It's not like I mean, obviously that has happened where people, where spies, especially female spies, would like honeypot a guy to get them to say some information. But most of the time, it's just, oh, I think this person's attractive. Let me talk to them and let's see if where this goes. Or not even that. I mean, most of the time it's the way that is with like things like apps and stuff like that. But in genuine real life, you meet people, you become friends, you get to know them, and then sometimes a relationship can develop afterwards. It's not always like it's not always used to extract like some kind of value from the other person. It's often just a mutual desire sometimes. It's just
It's
like
mainly
we
just
both like each
used
other.
to extract sex. And if someone in the relationship doesn't want to have sex anymore, then the entire relationship just
Hmm.
kind of ends because the other person does want sex very much.
Yeah, I
And
don't think that an
again, it's
asexual and an
transsexual.
allosexual could date because there's actually a great show. I forget what it's called, but it's this show about these high schoolers in Australia or something like that. And they it's kind of like Skins, if you ever seen that. But basically, it's about this like high school. But there is this one part where these two kids that are gay. One is a more femme, like almost trans, but a guy. And then there's like a more kind of like an inner city guy, and they get together. But the inner city, the sort of like queer, like femme guy is very hypersexual, and the inner city guy is asexual, and they like each other, but like they can't make their relationship work because the guy is asexual. And I predicted it. I knew it immediately. I was like that guy. Their
Right, right.
relationship's not going to work
Uh,
because it doesn't. They can't do
in
that.
my case, the way I see it
Mm-hmm.
is, I would enjoy feeling love,
Mm-hmm.
platonic love. But if love cannot exist independently of sex, then love does not exist.
I
If
totally
love
think
is
that
only a
yeah.
byproduct of the sexual process, and people cannot just get along with each other regardless of whether or not they're having sex, then love doesn't exist. And
No.
if someone actually loved me,
Mm-hmm.
he could absolutely sacrifice sex and just spend a lot of time with me.
Yeah, I
But
absolutely. Mhm.
as it stands, all I ever see are transactional sexual relationships where people treat each other like piggy banks that they can deposit and withdraw sex from.
Mhm.
And I don't think that's the type of relationship I'd ever want to engage in. It
I mean,
doesn't sound like much fun.
I feel like I agree because I don't feel like that. I think incels view sex as transactional, as like something owed to them. But I think general, normal, healthy relationships just view it as part of their thing. I forgot what I was gonna say. Something. I was gonna say something else too, though. But yeah, it's not like a piggy bank of, oh, let's have sex this and that time. I mean, eventually it can be that. Oh yeah, love does not equal sex. I totally, yeah, no, absolutely. I think I believe. I mean, there's five types of love in my opinion. There's romantic, which is the one most people think of immediately, and then there is platonic, which is I consider to be between friends and family, and then there's what's known as tribal love, which is when you go on like sports teams. Like if you meet somebody on the street and you don't know anything about them, but you see their shirt and they have a band or a sports team that you like, you're like, I know that thing. That would be like a tribal kind of connection and love. And then there's self love, which is understanding and loving yourself and being open and honest with yourself and understanding and completely accepting yourself. And then there's what I would call universal love, which is a more spiritual kind of, like a higher level kind of just love
Hmm,
with existence. So
I
yeah,
see.
I would totally agree that no, I do not think that sex and love are absolutely linked at all. In fact, and as a like I said, a more a non-monogamous person, I think true love, like what better way to test true love between sexual people if they are together and can have sex with anyone else at any time, but they still choose to stick around each other. Like clearly I feel like that's a much stronger relationship than one that's built entirely on we are only allowed to have sex with each other and no one else. I find
So you
yeah.
believe that jealousy can be conquered, but sexual attraction cannot.
Yeah, I mean,
Like you said, sex is
I think, yeah, I absolutely think jealousy can be conquered, but I don't. I mean, sexual attraction. Do you think that you could
sexual
become attracted to
attraction.
people?
This is what's interesting is I am very much capable of experiencing jealousy. It's
Mm-hmm.
one of the few things that does make me feel human on a routine basis is when I
Mm-hmm.
see one of my friends having sex or being around their boyfriend, and I
Yeah.
do feel
It's
jealous, and
definitely a
that makes me
natural
human.
feeling, of course, but I think it can be
Now,
overcome.
now, the thing is, I think jealousy and sex are roughly comparable. They are both deeply primal human emotions,
I
and they
th-
both,
I
in a
think
certain
that the
way, negate
Mhm.
the process of rational thought. There
Yeah.
is no actual reason why I should care
Hmm.
about my friend having sex with her boyfriend, but it does just kind of bother me.
Yeah.
I think if people could overcome jealousy, I think the world would be a much more peaceful,
Well,
harmonious
I
place.
certainly do.
But I'm
But
not sure
but you also seem to think that people can be overcome of their sexual attraction. Do you think that you could be
exactly
taught could do
because
you
they're the
think but does
same
that
type
mean
of
do you
prime.
think that you could be taught sexuality then? Do you think you could be convinced to find somebody sexually attractive? Because
No,
if
but
you
I do
couldn't,
think I
then the
could
other way
overcome
around doesn't
jealousy.
work. But you also yeah.
If I've transcended sexual attraction, if one
Uh-huh.
can overcome that, then one can overcome jealousy. I
Yeah.
think that
But you
I
haven't
think that
overcome
you
sexual
can
attraction.
overcome
You just
jealousy.
don't have it. You were just born without it. You didn't overcome anything. You were
That's
born
true.
that
It's
way.
not a challenge for me. It
It
might
never
be a
was.
challenge for
Yeah.
someone else. If someone can overcome jealousy, I think someone can
Yes.
overcome sexual attraction because they are roughly comparable behaviors. And
But
if I
then
can
so then you
overcome
agree that you
jealousy,
could overcome jealousy then. Then you
yes,
posit that.
but if I can put in the work and the time and the effort to
Hmm.
overcome my feelings of jealousy, I'd like someone to come along for the ride and overcome their feelings of sexual attraction.
Hmm.
Because if I'm willing to put in the work, I don't think it's exactly fair that I'm the only one who should be expected to put in the work. I think everyone else can too, or at
If you
least
think
like one person. One person can say, "Hey, Nick, I get that you're jealous around my boyfriend.
Mhm.
Jealousy isn't good. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to stop having sex with my boyfriend and be a much better friend and support you in your quest to overcome jealousy." And I'll also be overcoming a negative character trait that ruins all the relationships I have besides my
how
sexual
would
one.
her giving in to your
All
desires help you overcome jealousy at the expense of her boyfriend? How does that help you overcome jealousy? If anything, that just makes the boyfriend more jealous, and that
Well, yeah,
gives you
but
what you
but
want.
he wouldn't be her boyfriend anymore, so I could be a lot more receptive to him and maybe see something of myself in him or bond on some level.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be
I
jealous of him anymore. I'd be like, "Hey, you're a cool guy. You're not having sex with my friend anymore. Awesome, bro."
I mean,
But until that happens, I wouldn't be so jealous.
I would
Overall,
say
I think if even one person was capable of overcoming their sexual impulses, I could probably overcome my jealousy for literally everyone because my faith in humanity would be kind of restored after that. And I'd be convinced that free will and autonomy do in fact exist, and people can make rational decisions that improve their life.
there are
But I'd like to
celibate
overcome
people
jealousy.
that are voluntarily celibate.
There are,
So shouldn't
but
that
it's rare to come across.
but that exists. That already
It's kind of
exists.
yeah,
So
yeah,
doesn't
like
that
Buddhist
restore your
monks and
faith?
all.
It's already there. Your wish is granted.
Eh, I'd like to know one. I'd like to know
That would
one
be helpful.
personally
Yeah.
who does not have sex of their own volition. I think
You
that's
could probably
cool,
find that on the
and
internet.
it's a very admirable. It's a very admirable existence. No, I mean in Denver, I'd like to see that the Denver demographic is changing from a climate of unsophisticated apes who just think that they can go out and have sex with any girl they want to like a much
What
more
makes you
civilized
think
collection
that you
of guys
can
who
overcome sexual attraction, but you understand that you can't change someone's sexual orientation?
well, the same way that someone can go from being a virgin who's never had sex to a sexual being, I think someone can go the opposite route. Someone can go from a complete nymphomaniac and through a process
But they
of
can
just
still
like,
still find
love,
people
attention.
attractive though.
I think after the process that I have in mind, they wouldn't find anyone attractive sexually. They learn to appreciate people as people instead of just constantly
Okay.
wanting to have sex.
So, but if we
They'd
reversed
learn.
your method though, should it be effective, then we could engineer you into becoming a sexual being.
Well, no, because in my case, it's a sexual orientation. In terms of
How is it not?
like I say,
How
a
is it not
virgin,
when
not
it's
an
the other way
asexual.
around?
Say a celibate person. Say like a
Uh-huh.
Buddhist monk who is slowly guided into being a full on sex fiend. You can also guide a sex fiend into becoming a Buddhist monk. There's no
But
reason
they
why
will
you can't
both
train
will
the mind.
still look at a sexually attractive figure and find it sexually attractive.
Eh, Generally, with a celibate lifestyle like being a Buddhist monk, you're not really supposed to do that. Same with being a Catholic
You're
monk or anything.
supposed to, you can't, you yeah, no, I'm very familiar with Buddhism. I love Buddhism. I'm very inspired by
Right.
Buddhist understanding, which is how it's helped me overcome a lot of my flaws, um, and continue to work on them. But as someone who practices those types of things, like you just you control your actions. You accept that you find that person attractive, and then you just let it go. You don't
Interesting.
think immorality. You're just like, oh yeah, oh that's a that's a it's a nice ass, and then you just let it go, and then it goes. But you don't say it out loud. You just see it and then move on with your life, and then and as if you just looked at a bird fly in the sky.
Right. I never think any of that, which is why, again, I wouldn't even prefer to have to go through this whole rigmarole where I
Mm-hmm.
have to have one of my friends give up their sexual attraction, but there are
Mm-hmm.
no asexuals around, and it's so completely alienating that I might actually be interested in trying to maybe improve someone's life. I think someone's life could be quite improved if they stopped having a boyfriend or
I
a
really
girlfriend
want to
for that
improve
matter, and
your
just kind of
life and
focused on
help
people
you
for the
find
sake of people.
an asexual person to be friends with, because I'm so sad that you don't have one. That really hurts me.
It's not that sad. At a certain point, you just stop caring. You become
I
apathetic
know,
and
and
dead.
that's what's sad about it. It's like, you've given up, and I don't blame you for doing so,
You can't feel sexually about. I don't feel sexually or romantically towards anyone.
Exactly,
There are
and there are
people who
other
could
people
be
out
really
there
great
in
friends.
Denver who I would bet money that there is at least
I'm
one other
I'm
person
sure.
who is out
The
there.
thing is,
I want you to find them.
there's such a sex positive, polyamorous sort of atmosphere around here that all the asexuals are deeply, deeply in the closet, and there's
Hmm.
a deep stigma attached to the concept of being unable to experience romantic or sexual attraction. So
But you
everyone who could
understand,
potentially make a really great friend.
yeah, you understand that even if there are some bullies in the sex positive community, the point of sex positivity includes and encourages asexuality as well, right?
It really does not. It only encourages, like your take, polyamory. Everyone loves being polyamorous around
I
here,
feel like it.
and their relationships go to hell after about it, like a couple, like half a year, because they do experience jealousy, and they don't work on conquering their jealousy
Yeah.
before they launch into these polyamorous relationships, which is very important.
I
And
think that's like
there are not
people using feminism, like men using feminism, like the ideas of feminism to enhance patriarchy, where they encourage the bits of feminism where women can dress however they like in such a way that it also benefits the men. I think that the sex positive community is has doing that to you, because true, if you look up, like, sex positivity is very much pro, if you don't want it, you don't have to have it. Asexual, a-okay. That is good. Everybody should be able to have the sex or not sex that they want, with or without anyone else
right,
who
right,
consents. So
right.
the
But the issue
people who
is
are
that
assholes, but and there will always be assholes. But the concept
right.
is not anti-asexual, even though unfortunately in your
Problem
experience it
sort
seems to
of
feel that way.
the issue sort of is that whenever I say I'm asexual, people
Mm-hmm.
assume by default that I am sex repulsed. So at that point there is literally no further discussion of even the possibility. Which again
Well, do
I
you?
would
Well, you
very
should.
much be
You
willing to
could.
have.
You could subvert that though.
I think I could potential. I don't know what the effect would be on my psyche. It could very
Mm-hmm.
much drive me completely insane, or it could lead to me becoming a more mature, well-rounded person, or it could have no
What would
effect
be?
whatsoever, and I would go on completely as before.
What do you mean
But
by
either
it?
way,
What do you mean by it in that sentence? In that statement?
sex. If I had sex,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I'm not sure how it would affect my psyche. I
Mm-hmm.
have no way of
It pro
knowing. I've
I
never
don't
had it,
think it
but
would really affect you very much at all. I think you would kind of get over it pretty fast. I think you
and
would
that's
just move
kind
on.
of the issue is
Yeah.
if I was going to have sex or anything, I'd expect it to impact me for a great deal because
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of the point of any new experience.
Yeah.
And I would not want cheap, meaningless sex. And
Mm-hmm.
like you say, sort of the issue is that in my case, I can't have too many friends. I've realized at a certain point that I have too many friends. I have like 10,000 friends,
Hmm.
and
Well, you're quite
the
popular, aren't you?
potency of each is yeah, the potency of each is weakened by
Yeah.
the level of friendship. Yeah, it becomes it becomes diluted, like
Yeah.
adding food coloring
Well,
to
there's
a
only
massive tank of
Dunbar's
water.
whatever 150 relationships you can really maintain as a human being.
Right. And
Um,
I try and maintain 10,000, and that simply isn't mentally healthy. So I think at this point,
well, there you go.
one
I mean, you
consistent,
understand that
one
that's just
consistent,
wrong. Yeah. At least you
right,
know.
one consistent platonic female friend who never has sex with anyone else, and I never have sex with anyone else, and we're just best pals all the time. That could be a really grounding force in my life, like a really great anchor. And if she could just, express emotional support
Mm-hmm.
and be a nice person, and I could do the same for her, and together, then I think we could both help each other out a great deal mentally. But again, it's a paradox in that asexuals are all stigmatized in the closet, and nobody wants to admit that they are one. And
How
so, yeah, I think the issue is that I don't think polyamory is a universally applicable solution to every scenario.
I
I'm
wouldn't say
definitely
so either. I would
polyplatonic.
100% agree with you because
I
there are
wouldn't say
so many people who can't handle it. It's
well,
definitely a big thing.
I'd say I'm polyplatonic, and I can probably handle it a
Of
lot
course, you
better
would have
than
to be.
anyone
Yeah.
who can experience.
Mm.
I can handle it a lot better than anyone who can experience romantic attraction. I can't imagine what it would be like to know 10,000 people and be romantically attracted to a lot of them.
Hmm.
That must like really wreak havoc on the psyche, and I
Well, the
understand why
thing is,
people don't
it's
do that
not some.
because
It's kind of it's an unconscious process. It's like you go through the day as a sexual person. You go through the day and you just see other people and you find them either like you don't really think about it. Like most of the time, it's just
right.
not. It's not really. It doesn't really go into it. You don't. Yeah. Most people, even especially again, sexual people, don't take. They don't look around. I mean, there are definitely some pigs out there who are like, yes, yes, no, yes, no. But most people are just like, oh, they just treat people like people. It's not really a.
Well, that's fascinating because in my
Uh,
case, I am consistently conscious of every single relationship I try to engage or initiate. I keep
mm-hmm.
detailed statistics in my head at all times of everyone, their factors, their attributes,
I think that may
various
be
things
the
like
ish.
that.
I think that may be
I
part of the problem. I think you might be. You just. There's nothing wrong
rational
with it.
thought.
There's nothing wrong with it. But it might just be you're putting a lot of mental energy into this, and I think it might not be serving you,
Well,
from my
yes.
perspective. Yeah.
It's a large factor of my life, and I can't
Mhm.
treat it with anything remotely approaching like a casual attitude because
Mhm.
I've seen firsthand the psychological damage it can wreak on my head and so
Mhm.
many other people's heads. I've been around so many other people with like deep sexual trauma and deep romantic trauma,
Mm.
and so I do take it very seriously, and so I have to remain conscious of the types of things I'm saying
Mhm.
and how other people perceive me and how the relationship goes at every single point that I'm around them.
What about
And I
like?
think that's very important.
Are you a part of any online ace communities?
No, I gave that up a good long time ago.
It didn't work.
I haven't found the internet as conducive to communication for me at all.
I'm
The
sorry.
most effective and meaningful experience for me,
Mhm.
and the only time I've even been able to have a slight degree of like emotional output, uh, is when I'm just alone with a girl and I can cry to her or tell her and tell her she'll be okay, tell her I'll be okay, just be very, just have a total breakdown in front of a girl. It's great. It's much better than sex and a lot more meaningful.
Yeah. Do you
And I
think
think
that
crying is actually,
Do you think that you would it would serve you to try to foster more of those relationships with 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 girls that are platonic and stuff, and just wanting to be friends and stuff, and just kind of, I know that the big problem is when they get a boyfriend, and with women it's a lot easier for them to go from one relationship to another than with men, which is also why I think that perhaps maybe you should start. Again, you didn't ask for my advice, but I'm just saying, my opinion is maybe it would be easier to start looking for men as well, just to become, just to to be platonic friends with, to do that in until you are able to find this magical, completely asexual woman to be your other person, that is you play checkers with, and cry and spend almost 100% of the time together, and never once does
Well,
sex
see,
come up.
I've never really experienced. The thing is, I've never experienced that sort of time with the girl who's in a committed romantic relationship because they
Mm-hmm.
completely ignore me and block me out. In fact, they're extremely hesitant to allow me to be emotional or honest or vulnerable in front of them.
Why
I have
is that?
only ever
Because
been
I
able to
have a
do that in
friend
front of female
who
girls.
has been a friend of mine for a very long time. We're not related, but we're basically brother and sister. I don't find her, like, we will never date, but and she's had plenty of boyfriends, and we've had a very strong relationship throughout all that time.
I suppose it's because on a certain level they find me and all my attributes repulsive, and that's fine. If
Mm-hmm.
they'd rather spend time with their boyfriend, then they can. But
Mm-hmm.
they really are missing out on the sort of platonic experiences that I've had with girls who don't have boyfriends, and just want someone to talk to and be around,
How do
and
you feel about
be a person around.
yourself, as if you had a clone of yourself that you could be friends with and hang out with? How do you think
That
that
would
would
be
go?
fine, but that would be fine. But currently, cloning technology is legal. But yeah, that
Yeah,
I've thought about that oftentimes because I am literally the only person that I understand on any kind of
same. Uh,
absolute or complete
if I
level.
had
And
clones, dude, I we would be best buds, man. It would be so
part
much
of the
easier.
problem is that
Yeah.
yeah, part of the problem is that
Uh huh.
like you said, the deal with the deal with someone who has a boyfriend, and I can't. They put a certain level of like a shield or a wall up, a protective barrier,
Mhm.
and I understand why they do that, of course, because they assume on a fundamental innate level that I want to have sex with them, even if I absolutely don't. Um,
That just
and
takes time,
they
and the more you get to know
well,
a
no,
person, they'll understand that.
but I only get to know people for about 3 months on average before they leave or move away
Hmm.
because Denver is an extremely neurotic place that tends to foster all sorts of neuroses, and nobody wants to stay
Do
here
you live
for
on your
like a
own, or you live
prolonged
with your
period of
family?
time. With my family, but it
Yeah.
doesn't really matter because I want to meet people my own age who,
Hmm.
think similarly to me, be part of something. Denver doesn't foster a kind of
Tell me
it doesn't
again.
foster the kind of thing that I imagine goes on in any other
Mm.
cities. So,
Okay, that's true. Yeah, all cities ever
everyone
don't.
is constantly moving, leaving in and out.
Yeah. Tell me more about your. Oh, so it's very transient. Not a lot of people spend a lot of time there. That's interesting.
Yes,
Tell
it's
me
very transient.
Tell
Yes.
me again about your experience with the asexual support group, where it was just a bunch of trans people who were not asexual. How did that go, if I may
Oh,
ask?
right, right. They were like someone came in and was like, "Oh, my marriage is getting stale. I've been married for 10 years, and
Well, that doesn't
I
mean that
don't
they're not
enjoy having
asexual,
sex
though.
anymore."
They could be romantic. Continue.
They could
Sorry.
be, but
Yeah.
they had sex.
Okay.
So I would say, did you enjoy it? Did you like sex? Did you find anything in it?
Uh huh.
Because obviously, if they do, probably nice. It's probably just an old marriage, and I was willing to be realistic about that.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you
Nobody else
believe
in the
that
group
there's a
was asexual.
Wow, that's so weird. Do you believe there can be a
I mean,
spectrum of asexuality? You're at the opposite, like the complete end of it. You have zero, but do you think that there's people that can be very asexual but open to it sometimes?
No, generally not. I think
It's a
if you've
binary.
never had a sexual thought or a romantic thought, then you're asexual or aromantic, and if you do, then you're allosexual, and that's fine. But
Okay.
I think particularly I am the only asexual around who legitimately has never had sex, nor wanted sex, nor cares about it at all, and is willing to be completely open and honest about that fact, thereby alienating everyone around me on a consistent basis. But no, there are
In
no.
the city of
And
Denver.
keep in mind, I imagine that the Denver asexual support group is probably a lot smaller than like a coastal one, but yeah, there's definitely not too many,
How
but I
would
think
you?
the actual asexuals are
Mhm.
probably at home in the closet.
Yeah, yeah, it makes sense because you guys, it's easy to be alone with yourself.
It's
Um,
entirely paradoxic. I'm the
yeah.
only open one.
How have you ever tried an online one? I know those aren't usually very fun, but like an online asexual
Well,
support
no,
group. You want people in
because
Denver, right?
because people on there are either not in Denver or
Mm-hmm.
um it's like you know I don't even think the ones who are in the closet necessarily even try those ones. I think they just are in consistent denial about their lack of interest in sex.
Mm-hmm.
I think uh, I'm not sure if it's more a thing with girls or more with guys where they'll be like, I don't want to admit that I'm asexual.
Mm-hmm.
I think from everything I've seen, girls are more willing to be honest about because sex is a hassle for them anyway, so they may as well just be like, I don't have sex. But
Mm-hmm.
it's very rare to see a guy be honest about it because it's seen as like a big
Yeah, it's
thing,
patriarchy.
and losing. Yeah, yeah, right,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly.
No, I understand.
So yeah, they don't like it too much, and I think it's more common to be an asexual girl. But I'm sure with as with any other sexual orientation, it's about 50-50.
Yeah. I imagine there's probably more, but like you said, they just don't identify themselves very much. I imagine the percentage of asexual people out in the whole world are higher than than what it says
Yeah,
because
they
yeah.
don't.
I'm really glad that you have a YouTube channel because that's how we met. I think that have you considered and is maybe do you do this to perhaps foster a community of asexual people because there are other YouTube channels that are
Well,
actually quite popular that are asexual.
I only recently started posting about asexuality. I certainly will more in the future.
Mm-hmm.
It's only one of a handful of subjects I find interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Really, my video, the asexual double standard, is probably the lengthiest one I'm ever going to make on the subject. It pretty
Mm-hmm.
much goes through all of the ace experience. But I do believe that asexual visibility, representation, and the like is a very important cause that
It
I'm very
is. I
much
agree.
I'm willing to contribute to. And yeah, I got kicked out of this asexual support group because I wanted to start an asexual band. And they said I was being too pushy, but there's trans bands, there's all gay bands, there's all lesbian
Yeah,
bands all
might have
around.
just been a bad
And
timing.
I see no reason why there can't be an asexual band where they talk
I think that's a
specifically
great idea.
about not wanting to have sex.
I think
The
that
problem is that
yeah.
it's not very marketable.
Oh well, neither
And
is most
there
of
aren't enough
underground stuff.
asexuals locally. There aren't enough asexuals locally to join or care about it. But other
Maybe
than
one
that,
day.
like I say, in my novels, stories, I try and incorporate asexual themes every so often.
That's
I'm
good.
pretty sure my new vampire book, which comes out next year, will be the first ever depiction of vampires as completely passionless
Hmm.
asexual creatures. For whatever reason, they're always depicted as hot, which I don't understand
Hmm.
because like they're dead and cold. So I think an asexual depiction is a much more accurate type portrayal
How do you
of the
use the
creatures.
blood sucking thing? Like
They don't feel anything when they do it. It's not equivalent to sex. They're
yeah,
just
you don't
hungry.
use it
The
as
same way that
a
I consume
metaphor for
food.
something.
No, the same way that I consume food.
Okay.
Yeah, they technically, if I recall, the vampires in Anne Rice's mythos are technically asexual because they don't have sex, but they're the
Yeah,
blood drinking as a metaphor for
they
sex. Whereas in
infect.
mine, the vampires are cold, dead, empty husks without the inability to love,
Yeah.
and it's pretty entertaining. It gets into some pretty interesting.
How
So yeah, I
long
write
is
about
it?
asexuality.
How long will it be?
It'll probably top out at around 80,000 words. My previous novel is about 76,000, so I'm going to
Do you
try and
make money
stretch to
writing?
80,000. Yes, yes, and
Good.
you can I should say to all the viewers out there, you can get a free catalog of all my titles by
Ooh.
writing to Nicholas Cicada, 1424 Columbine Street, number 1, Denver, Colorado 80206. Nicholas on YouTube,
Uh-huh.
um, not on
On
Instagram, not
on
on TikTok,
live,
but I am on YouTube.
it won't be a thing, but on the video, I'll make sure to put this out in text, and I'll have a link in the description, and I'll
Yeah,
do the
sure.
same.
Yeah, my address and everything totally public. That's where people write to get the free Nicholas Comics catalog.
That's
So yeah,
cool.
that's yeah, my
Yeah.
debut novel, Frames of Reference, is out now. It has some asexual themes to it.
Yeah.
I write about asexuality. I film about it. I make songs about it. I do all that because I think it is important to increase asexual visibility. For
Mhm.
whatever reason, this might not even be the case in any other city, but in Denver, there is a serious lack of asexual visibility and representation,
Mm.
and I think
Is
that's a
there a
shame.
city
And
that's better? Do you think that might be?
I have no idea. I haven't been to any other cities particularly, but
Maybe we should look it up.
I do think that Denver, just in particular, probably does a terrible job of it. And from everything I've heard from all my pals, they say that the guys around here are very insufferable and really can't stop. So
Mhm.
yeah, I hope that changes eventually. It's a very annoying type environment to be
Mhm.
around, and it's just
Yeah.
consistently neurotic.
I'm looking
But yeah,
for if there's any cities.
I'd say partially the main issue is that you know, everyone talks about all these phenomena like body dysmorphia, confusion, questioning one's orientation, everything. I know exactly what I want and exactly what I'm after in life, and
Mhm.
exactly who I am and how I feel. But while everyone is very supportive, I have yet to find someone who I feel completely like shares my lived
Mhm.
experience and knows exactly what I'm talking about. And yeah, so if there's any asexual listeners out there, please, by all means, just do something fun, cool.
Yeah.
If you're in
I
the Denver area, I'm open for a day of fun.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, absolutely. Any asexuals out there in Denver who see this, please let our friend know so you guys can maybe
Yes.
hang out. I just looked
So
it up. It's hard there. Yeah, I didn't see anything in my 5 seconds
there's
of
no
Google
statistics, right?
search.
It's
Yeah.
very poor. It's very poorly researched.
Mm,
That's what I find too. Is asexuality is like very poorly researched, so I kind of have to figure it
yeah.
out all on my own. I
Yeah.
do a decent job of it. I do a decent job.
I do hope that you can develop a community. And oh yeah, what do you think of the other asexual YouTubers and stuff?
Uh,
Have you seen them?
I I don't watch too much asexual type content. I
You might
like
want to check it
making it.
out
Yeah,
because
I
there are people
probably
out
will.
there,
I'm sure I'd find that
and I
interesting.
think they have Discord servers.
Every so often, I go on a certain certain video topic,
Hmm.
and I just stay on that a while. But I will certainly,
There's
I am
two that I
certainly
know
interested in
of.
the
There's
asexual
one that's a
experience.
British guy, and then there's another one that's like two or three people who are in like an
Oh yeah, him.
A's.
I've seen his video about yeah. I've seen all of that.
What do you think
I
of?
would say that it's okay. It's decently informative. I would say specifically that I like producing stuff from the perspective of a Denverite specifically because Denver is a very unique type
Yeah,
environment. I'm sure
you're
over in
very
Britain or any
much
highly
in yourself.
populated area
Yeah.
there's more asexuals.
Mm.
I'm sure in any highly populated area there's more asexuals, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I find the perspective from Denver specifically absolutely fascinating and
Hmm.
very interesting.
I really hope you
Yeah,
find what you're looking for, and I hope you,
certainly.
don't take things so seriously when you find friends that do have sex sometimes. Don't take it personally. It's nothing
Well,
you did.
I'm not possessed of the kind of hormonal tempest that someone who is capable of experiencing romantic attraction would be. I just kind of let them go and then just say, have a great time, but you've ruined our friendship. But that's okay. Enjoy having sex. That's all I
What
can do.
about when they break up with their boyfriend and they say, "Hey, what's up? Are you willing to pick up the friendship again?" or do you feel
Yeah,
persuaded?
I hope eventually. I hope
Hmm.
eventually some of them do that. That could be pretty cool if they start recognizing that these guys really only value them for their body, and that's kind of not
Hmm.
a way to form a relationship on top of. But I
What
would
if they
say
were?
that yeah, certainly I'm open to that.
What if they were to get married to this person, but then reach out to you still and be like, "Hey, so I've been together with my friend with my boyfriend or husband or whatever for a while, and we want to all be friends and hang out, and just the three of us hang out a lot." How would you do?
I consider marriage to be potentially the most foreign and alienating process it's
Well, yeah,
possible
no,
to
no, you
have.
you wouldn't you wouldn't be part of the marriage. Like they're just married, and they're
No,
inviting
I
you to
mean the
hang
fact
out.
that they're even in the marriage would mean that they're like, Freemasons or something, and they're part of this occult secret society that I have nothing to do with. So I'd have a very
Ah,
difficult
man, I
time
think you're
relating to
taking it too
anything they
seriously.
say.
I think that's the problem. I think you're taking it just a
The
bit too
tossing of
seriously.
the
Though I don't
flower
blame you. You
in
you are
Freudian
very
terms. In Freudian terms, a wedding is a symbolic orgy. That's what Freud thought, and I
yeah, but
kind of
Freud is
believe in that.
crazy, dude. Freud's been disproven on everything.
Uh,
Um,
well, I prefer young, but I do think that's the
I
so
do
married
understand
couples
that the concept of
probably
marriage,
not.
I think, is a little antiquated, though, and also it's a property relationship. It literally is a transaction, so it's
Exactly,
based in
exactly.
those kind of things. However, it's evolved. I don't mind expressions of love. Like what are nice when people do renewals of
Mm.
vows, that it's like they get married all over again. They have a whole other wedding just to reaffirm how much they love each other, and I think those things are nice. um
Well,
Gosh. Oh yeah, a few other questions. I was gonna get going. Do you still have time?
yeah, I got time.
Cool. Yeah, because
I
I
got
actually
time.
just remembered
Yeah,
that I wanted to ask, what is it like? It must. What's it like? When basically every song, ad, media, every entertainment and art that exists is like being based around something that you just can't relate to. How must that be like?
see that's interesting because
I really want to know.
I
Yeah.
don't believe that I don't believe that every piece of art is necessarily meant
Yeah, not
to
every single one, but the
be
vast majority.
conducive to sex or romance. So what I do specifically is, creating asexual music. It's very interesting because I'm
Hmm.
up against so many decades of really cheesy pop and love songs they're all mushy.
You
So
make
I
music?
find that it's a very, yeah, I make music.
What would you
I
do?
find that
What
it's a
would you do if
very
you found out that two people had sex to one of your songs? Sorry if that's
I don't
rude.
know why they would.
Yeah, but
I don't know why they would, but
just
if
something
they
popped
did,
in my head.
that'd be I guess my first choice would be to question their rationale,
Yeah,
to
that would
have
be
sex to a
yeah.
song that is specifically
Specifically.
about not having sex. It would be
Oh
interesting.
my
I would be
gosh.
interested
Yeah,
to know.
dude.
I
I
think.
I would be the one to I would do that. I'll let you
But
know when that
I
happens.
enjoy providing a subversive alternative for people who aren't into romance or sex. I think I'm
Yeah,
definitely filling a niche in an untapped
definitely.
market, even if
Definitely.
and I think in time, say 30, 40 years, my songs will be looked back on fondly, but I'm sure by
I
that
hope
point
so.
more people will come out of the closet.
Yeah.
And they'll see me as a general trendsetter who was capable of making asexual music in a time when that really wasn't a thing, and there was still so much commercialized pop songs and stuff about having sex and falling in love.
Do you
So
enjoy
yeah,
media and TV shows and stuff that have like that are like dramas and romance and stuff, even if it doesn't appeal to you?
no, I don't prefer romantic stuff. I don't prefer
Obviously,
romantic
no
comedies.
romantic stuff.
I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
really
yeah.
prefer dramas. I prefer science fiction and horror because I believe those two genres have a lot
Those
of
are good.
potential for the imagination.
Yeah.
And I believe that it is the duty of any serious sci-fi or horror author to present alternative possibilities, new ideas, especially in science fiction. Have an alien species that's non-binary, have an alien
Yep.
species
Yep.
that's asexual, just to expand one's perspective.
Have
In
you
the
ever
worst case,
seen The
I've seen.
Expanse or For All Mankind? Those are great
No,
sci-fi
I haven't
shows.
seen The Expanse or For All Mankind.
I
I
highly
would
recommend them.
say
They are really,
I would
really good.
say the worst representation of sexuality I've seen in science fiction has been Robert A. Heinlein, particularly
Hmm.
Stranger in a Strange Land, where he
Hmm.
affirms that sex is a universal constant. He
Yeah.
says every invention that humanity has ever come up with is specifically for the purpose of reproduction.
Hmm.
Look through the patent system for the submissions of eunuchs. I think it's not offensive, but I think that to call oneself a sci-fi author and to be incapable of imagining a potential alien
Yeah.
society without the
Hmm.
process of sex just speaks to a
Yeah.
general
Like
close-mindedness.
literally like an asexual reproductive species that becomes intelligent,
Yeah,
like a
right.
hive mind. Yeah, like
In terms of I'd say the best
oh, it is
portrayal
about
of sexual
procreation.
dynamics the best portrayal of sexual dynamics in science fiction would probably actually be Star Trek. I
Yep.
like a lot of the
Star Trek's
yeah,
good.
Star Trek has an
Which one?
interesting
Which ones?
uh well all of them. I
Mm-hmm.
suppose everyone before Enterprise. I don't like everything past Enterprise, but Voyager, Deep Space Nine, the original in particular.
There is
I
sex in
think
that
just
one
the
though.
concept of
With
yeah,
Kirk
there's
always
sex in
banging.
all of them, but
Yeah.
yeah, but
Mm-hmm.
then again, the thing is, a lot of people point to Kirk as kind of an outdated type
Yeah,
character who
he's a
has
kind of
too much
a
sex.
antiquated.
But the great thing about the writing is that Spock is there to provide a welcome
Yeah,
contrast,
Spock is
of
great.
complete
Yeah,
ration. Right,
for that.
right,
Mm-hmm.
an absolute contrast. So I would say that's an example of good writing where you acknowledge that different characters can
Okay.
have different levels of interest in something.
What about the relationship between Kirk and Spock? They have a very close platonic relationship, but Kirk obviously has sex on the side. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, that's an example of a platonic. That's an example of a platonic relationship,
They're
and
like brothers,
well,
basically.
that's different. Obviously, yeah, that's
Yeah,
different because obviously Spock and Kirk are the same gender. I'd say with
that's
intergender
true.
platonic friendships, the dynamic is quite different. I would say a better example, a much better example from Star Trek specifically, would be Will Riker and Deanna Troi from the Next Generation.
Mm.
There's an episode specifically where Deanna Troi is about to get married, and Riker doesn't really like that because he and her have some past issues. But they're just friends at that point, and he
Mm-hmm.
says, she can get married or whatever. I don't really care, but so long as it makes her happy. I think that's an example of a great deal of maturity, and
Yeah,
I think it's important that maturity in that sense is portrayed in science fiction.
that's
But I
the
do
main
think that
thing.
science fiction and horror, out of any two genres, are much better at portraying imaginative dynamics and interesting possibilities than dramas or romance or anything like that. So no, I don't typically watch romantic media.
I imagine you haven't seen the movie The Substance, right?
No, I haven't seen
No,
it. I know it's no, but I haven't
I
seen it.
wonder what you would think about it because obviously it's a. Do you know anything about it?
No,
Well,
is it like the stuff the Larry Cohen film?
it's kind of like it's actually a body horror film where this aging like starlet gets a substance that makes like a clone of her out of her body that's like a younger version of herself and stuff, and
Hmm,
it like she like
interesting.
steals her future body's life force to keep the past life alive and stuff like that. It's a very
Mhm.
pro like sexual movie, but it's also about things like aging and addiction and stuff like that. And it's
Yeah, so long as something has themes beyond just sex is great, it's a universal positive.
mhm.
I think to assert anything as a universally good thing or a universally positive thing is naive
Yeah.
and speaks to a certain
Except for
immaturity.
fascism being a
And
universal negative, I will stand by that.
here in Denver,
Hmm.
the general consensus seems to be that the only qualifier of maturity is that you have sex and do drugs. But
That
I
sounds
think I'm
rather
actually
immature,
far more
in my
mature.
opinion.
Yeah, Yeah, I don't think there's anything inherently mature about having sex, and I think in
No.
many ways it is indicative of a deep-seated immaturity
Mm.
to just consistently have sex and to never think about why you're having sex or who you're having sex with or if you even
Yeah,
particularly
because
like it.
what makes when
I think
relationships good is the times around the sex. It's the time, because obviously
right.
any two people can have sex, but like, relationships are good because you enjoy each other's company. And, so
That might very well be true. The fun part might be the stuff around the sex, but in
mhm.
my case, all I want is a relationship with none of the sex, none of the risk, none of the stress, and none of the hassle. Because I'm very risk averse generally,
Well, I would like a
and
million
I
dollars too.
want a nice, stable, reasonable, rational type platonic friendship where we have as much fun and spend enough time as a boyfriend would, but we just don't have the sex.
Mhm.
So if everything about a relationship really is just the fun times and the everything around the sex, then it should not be that hard for me to find someone who just is okay with cutting that sex out and just having a good time all around and just doing stuff because I don't think it should be that hard. But again, when sex is propped up as some kind of qualifier of maturity or something, I think that's
I agree.
I think that's
That's silly.
completely fallacious, and I think
Mhm.
it doesn't make any sense to paint sex as a universally positive behavior,
I don't think there's
because
anything
there
wrong
can be
with
many
being an old,
many negative attributes to it.
like a post-adolescent virgin, even if you don't want to be. I don't think there's anything wrong. There's no inherent failure on your part, in that case too.
Well,
If
the thing
yeah,
is, I mean, currently,
for those
everyone
that
around
applies to.
me is in the 20s and they're very hormonal,
Mm.
and I think I'll have a much easier time of it when everyone around me is 40 and completely disillusioned with the process. But
That's the good
it
thing.
is
That's a good
unique in
thing
that
too. It's
I
gonna
have to
take some
wait until
time,
then.
but patience is a
Yeah, I have
virtue.
to wait until then.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I suppose I will have to wait until then, but
It's
until then,
annoying
it's
in the
fascinating.
meantime, but once
No, it's really interesting.
yeah, well,
It's a
you get to see.
fascinating time being asexual. It's
Yeah,
very, very interesting.
it's
There's
certainly
nothing
very
quite like it.
unique. I would say, yeah.
I suppose. I think
Just
also I should
statistically
say that.
speaking.
Right. This
Hmm.
is the last thing I would say is that for a movement that purportedly claims to value diversity, acknowledge the differences between people and everything. LGBT needs to do way better at acknowledging and
Agreed.
making asexual people feel safe, and
Hmm.
also um yeah, like you can't exactly claim to be diverse if you assume that sex is a universal constant. That negates diversity right there.
Yeah.
Also if you assume that polyamory is the correct option for everyone, because
Yeah, that would be cool. Well, if
oftentimes
any one size fits all will be wrong, regardless of
right,
the statement.
polyamory,
Yeah,
monogamy,
polyamory,
whatever.
monogamy, sexual,
I
asexual, it's
think
all
I think a lot of people aren't aware that
everyone's unique.
monogamous a platonic monogamy is an option, and I think if people
Hmm.
were aware that was an option, and both polyamory and romance and sex weren't placed on such high pedestals, I legitimately think that like a lot of people would probably just be willing to admit that they were asexual and feel safe in doing so.
How do
I have no
you
regrets in
could you cheat in a platonic like asexual relationship if one of them
literally no. That's the great thing about it is
yeah.
if you have a friend and you're legitimately not having sex with them, not being romantic, you're just pals to the
Uh-huh.
same extent that someone's pals with me. You can't cheat. That's not really possible.
Okay, so
The
you
only
wouldn't
thing
you
that would make
wouldn't
it cheating
feel
is if you're having
somewhat betrayed and let outside of if they left
not
that
at all.
they stopped hanging out with you and started hanging out with someone else. That would be obviously a betrayal. But other than that, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's great. As
You
long
mean
as mm,
if they went with the other friend instead of me?
yeah, that's like if they obviously
Right.
that would be a problem. But
That would be much less of a betrayal than just going with someone because they can have sex with them, because in that case it's unfair because I'm unable to engage in pheromonal transfer with them.
mm,
And so if they chose someone else to be friends with a lot over me, I would not consider that cheating. I would consider that completely fair because they would be basically pointing out that the other person had desirable characteristics that I don't.
Mm.
It would be completely.
So
The
you would
problem
feel,
comes
yeah,
when
you.
someone is able
Hmm.
to seduce them via pretty lies
Yeah.
and sultry words and the process of sex, which is
Yeah.
inherently like yeah, a very facetious one,
Mhm.
and flirting
What
is
about
facetious
if a
alike.
friend has like a one night stand?
I can forgive that. I mean, I'm capable of
Good. I'm glad to hear it.
being forgiving and understanding.
Maturity.
But if they just keep having sex with this one guy and they completely ignore me and act as if
Hmm.
I'm worth nothing, then all I can do. And the problem also is that I'm not given any say whatsoever in how my relationships work. I am given literally no power
Hmm.
or any say in what goes on. If they just keep having sex and keep having sex over and on, and they don't understand that it hurts my feelings or ruins our friendship even a little bit, then all I can say to them is, okay, go on and have sex, but we're not going to be friends anymore because we have literally nothing in common
Mm.
to get along with over. So
Well. That's not entirely true. I mean, like, what if they just don't tell you, and they like they have a bunch of casual sex sometimes, but you know they're your good friend, and they just don't really tell you about it a lot.
that makes it very difficult. Like I say, it'd be the easiest with an asexual because you could
Yeah,
completely
of
trust
course.
them,
Then you don't have to worry about
and
it.
there'd be no risk of that.
But that would feel like a
It is
betrayal
a
to you
it is a
if they were
yes, it
having
is a
casual
tortured
sex.
existence to know that everyone is consistently engaging in this hobby of theirs,
Mm-hmm.
and you are continuously left out and can never really
I can
understand it or
understand that
even know what
feeling
it's
annoying.
like
Yeah.
or anything.
Mm.
Yeah, it is a completely alienating experience. I hope to meet some asexuals. Anyway,
We have a comment I can read. Someone says
sure, sure.
Resa's
Answer.
Evelyn says, I am kinda in an identity crisis and I have been questioning asexuality for a long time and I don't know what's wrong with me. In parentheses, I don't think anything is wrong with other ace people, but being ace in a sex centered environment is hard, as they say. So, do you have any advice for this person?
Well, I would say that yeah, I have some advice. If you don't enjoy sex, do not have sex. If you don't want to have sex, if you feel unsafe in any given scenario, if you feel you're being coerced against your will into doing something you don't want to do, don't do it. And assert your own will and autonomy and freedom of choice because ultimately you have that as a human being. And I think that's a very fundamental and important human right.
Mm-hmm.
But if you do enjoy sex, if you've had a lot of sex and you tend to enjoy it, just acknowledge you're an allosexual. If you don't enjoy sex, if it's not fun for you, if you feel like it's an obligation or a hassle or not a fun time, you're probably asexual, and you should probably just look for someone who values you more and treats you better. That'd be my advice. And again, I give very cut and dry type.
Mm-hmm.
I give a very cut and dry type answer to this because I think if it's not difficult to tell whether or not you're asexual. I've known I was asexual ever since I knew what the word meant,
Hmm.
which I didn't learn in high school sex ed. I had to learn completely after high school because they don't even teach you this kind of thing in public education.
So
But
you
yeah, if
must
you
have
enjoy
noticed.
sex,
Did you ever feel out of place? You're like, why does everyone seem to be
I
developing this
I
and I
I
haven't
I
yet?
I, I was never attracted to anyone my
Mm.
entire life, but everyone just kept saying, "Oh, that'll happen when you grow up. That'll happen when
Yeah,
you grow
you
up."
just
Yeah, I'm
figured that
22, and
I'm a
I
late
still
bloomer.
never have, and
Mm.
I learned it of my own volition.
Good
Um,
stuff.
I never felt too different from anyone. I mean, before they were having sex, obviously, I felt
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that
You
I
just
I
didn't
didn't
really
even know
care.
asexuality was an option because
Mm-hmm.
all I knew was being gay or straight.
Yeah.
But I would say that, yeah, if you enjoy sex, then you are allosexual. If
Mm-hmm.
you don't enjoy sex, you're asexual. It's about like that.
Pretty
So I'd
much. Pretty
say you
much.
should recognize whether or not you like it, and if you
Mm-hmm.
don't like it, then don't have it.
Yeah. And Evelyn commenter, if you will have make sure to upload. If you subscribe to me, I can link you over to Nick here, and so you can subscribe to their channel and you can watch more of their videos.
Yeah, it'll be on my end too.
All
Yes.
right. Do you have any questions for me about my sort of opposite experience?
No, not particularly. I think we've done a decent
Yeah.
overview of the benefits of polyamory versus monogamy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would just say that I would like to reiterate the idea that jealousy and sexual attraction are both primal desires and feelings that can
Mm-hmm.
be overcome through will.
Yeah.
And I think that to hold them to separate standards, to say, well, you can be in this polycule of 50 people and love everyone equally and have sex with everyone equally and never experience any kind of jealousy, that can very much happen. It takes a lot of work and effort to get all 50
Yeah.
people going on the same page evenly and to make sure that they never feel a shred of jealousy towards each other.
The
But
way that it usually works is
uh,
that it's like everybody is dating each other. So it's like
right,
instead of
right,
a guy with two
right, yeah,
girlfriends, it's like two girlfriends, a guy and a girl, and then a girl and a guy, and the two
right,
girls are also dating each
right.
other separate from the guy too. So you know,
And right, right. And what
and
I
it
would say is
expands.
that if you can overcome jealousy like that, you can
Mm-hmm.
also overcome the need to engage in sexual or romantic behavior with anyone, and you can exist entirely as a mental, emotional type being who just thinks
I feel
and
like you can
express.
overcome the like you know I think you can overcome the compulsion of sex to the point of it being an issue, but I don't think, and the same thing with jealousy, but I mean, I don't think I could. I don't think you can turn a, a sexual person to an asexual person and vice versa. I don't think that, just the same way you can't turn a gay person straight. I don't think any
Yeah,
convincing or anything will be possible. It's just that they just it's just their sex drive might change, or it's also self-control, being, if you are
I
sexual, but if
think
you're asexual it doesn't really
I
matter.
think that I think that human autonomy and free will and the ability to make decisions about when and when not to have sex, that's kind of underestimated. I think people can make smart, rational decisions about when and when not to have sex, and they can abandon themselves during the sex. But I think around the sex, it's very important to be conscious and understanding of what whoever you're with needs and whether or not
Mm-hmm.
they actually want to have sex with you. Um,
Yeah.
and I would also say that I do believe that sex contributes very heavily to gender roles. I think that if people stopped having sex and didn't consider each other a boyfriend, a girlfriend, anything like that,
Mm-hmm.
um, people would have way less gender roles and people would consider themselves just people a lot more and just kind of focus on their thoughts and feelings.
Mm-hmm.
I am in a very unique position in that I am not non-binary. I'm not trans. I'm completely cis, and I consider
Same.
myself a guy completely.
Yep.
I was born a guy. I consider myself a guy,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's very reductive to reduce masculinity to having sex. I think that's a reductive view of
Yeah.
masculinity, and I think
That's
there's
entirely
far more.
patriarchy. I'm a gender abolitionist
I
also,
think
so I
I
think that
think
gender is kind of whatever you want.
I think that the development of the mind is a masculine trait that I put a great deal of stock into and I think is very neat. And yeah, so I'm cis, but I'm completely asexual. Um and yeah, I'm in a unique position on that because
Mm-hmm.
I've never experienced anything remotely approaching body dysmorphia. I don't care about my body. I completely ignore my reproductive system. I don't even know what it's for. But
Hmm.
I would say that that also puts me in sort of a unique spot because there are a lot of trans ace people. There's a lot of non-binary ace people. I don't understand the process of feeling alienated in one's own body at all. My body's about the only place that makes sense to me, and
Hmm.
I totally get.
But you can empathize
Other
with a
than that,
trans person having that dysphoria, even though you don't feel it, or know what know what they feel like, right?
it's similar. It's similar to sex. It's something that I acknowledge that people certainly have, and that causes a great deal
Have
of
you ever felt
trouble
gender
and issues.
euphoria, where you felt really
No,
like
not
masculine?
particularly.
Yeah, I just mentioned
I
that's hard
don't
for an
particularly
asexual.
care. Yeah, it's just gender apathy. I don't care that I'm a guy. If I was a girl, I wouldn't particularly care that I was a girl because it's never relevant. And yeah, I just prefer
I think
thinking.
you
Uh,
might be lucky to be a man because someone with your perspective, as a woman, as a female, you would, or as a as a femme presenting person, you would probably get propositioned a lot more, and it would be a lot more annoying. Thankfully, as a man, that probably doesn't happen very
well,
much.
the thing is, if you're a girl and you're asexual or aromantic and you
Mm-hmm.
get flirted with a lot,
Yeah.
which I don't. I no, girls don't come up to me and
No,
say,
yeah, it
"Hey, you
doesn't
know."
usually go the other way around very much,
And that's a
unless the
problem
guy's
too
famous.
because again, these are obviously gender roles at play. I would like
Yeah.
a more forward, active type girl who knows what she wants, is very like active and open, and just
Mm-hmm.
is basically I approach any type relationship basically with the hesitancy and reluctance of a girl. I'm very much not forward going or anything, but I would say that it's very nice to not to be able to speak to girls as much as I want with zero romantic or sexual tension. It's something the average straight guy can't do,
I would
and that
think
is
that would
pretty
help you
cool.
make more friends because yeah, you're a lot more confident.
Yeah, I can talk to girls a lot and I can be great friends with them, but
Mm-hmm.
once it comes time to, to have a boyfriend or to start up the sex,
Then it
then it kind of
goes
goes downhill.
downhill.
But up until that point, it's very easy because
Yeah.
there's no sexual tension. There might be romantic attraction on their end, which makes things kind of awkward, but I just
Mm-hmm.
reassure them. My
Yeah.
advice, if you're an ace or arrow girl, is it might be very annoying to have guys flirt with you all the time. Um, but like with me, I have to actively try to make friends. So if there's guys who are constantly being annoying or say that they just want to be friends when obviously they actually want to have sex, my advice would be just string them along for as long as they'll stand it.
Mm-hmm.
And then once they say time to have sex, just get rid of them because But up until that point, you can have a great deal of fun with them, and don't take for granted that people want to be around you and want to want to talk to you and stuff because that can kind of fulfill the need even if you know it's all a pretense. Just kind of take advantage of that. In my case, it doesn't happen, so I think
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of lucky.
Yeah. Well, so let's end on the question from the audience. I think you already answered this, but just for clarification, Evelyn asks,
Sure.
"How old were we when we realized our sexuality?" So why don't you go first?
I like I said, I've always known I was asexual. I've never experienced a single sexual or romantic thought, but I don't know if this is just the case in Denver, but the sexual education course I took
Mm.
did not mention asexuality at all. Completely left it
Wow,
out. So
that's a
I
bum.
was very confused. Yeah, they talk about bisexuality. They talk about how to put a condom on, all this stuff that I knew even at that point would be completely irrelevant to me. Um,
That's unfortunate.
and yeah, it's miserable because the whole time I was growing up, I thought I would either be straight or gay,
Mm-hmm.
and I had no idea that asexuality was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was probably about at 19. It was a little after I got out of high school,
Mm-hmm.
and was able to like look stuff up, freely access information. That was a new thing to me.
Yeah.
And I think first, uh, I've always been big into Archie comics, and
Hmm.
there's the character Jughead in that. Jughead is the best representation of asexuality in pop
Oh,
culture
good.
anywhere.
Good to
It's
know.
it's very and he's been around since 1942, so he's
Yeah.
technically one of the first LGBT characters in comics, but no one acknowledges that because
Yeah. Because
asexuality is always overlooked and sidelined and
it's
erased.
never mentioned in
But I
plain
read
text.
yeah,
It's
I
just
read that.
there.
I read that, and I found Jughead very relatable. Because the
Mm-hmm.
premise is he just doesn't like girls. He doesn't like thoughts of romance or sex or anything. He likes eating a lot, but he doesn't like sex. And he's there again to provide kind of a contrast with the main character Archie, who's
Yeah,
like
who's
totally horned
always
up all the
between the
time,
two girls.
which is
Yeah.
an example of great writing.
Mm.
I think the first time I heard the term asexual was in a Nathan for You skit,
Really?
the asexual computer repair one. Yeah.
Huh. That's
that's the
funny.
first time I actually heard the term asexual, and I wasn't quite sure if it applied to me, but after about another year or so, I realized, yeah, that applies to me. I'm 100% that.
Hmm.
And yeah, I would recommend the asexual computer repair skit. It's very funny,
I'll have to check
from
it out.
Nathan for you. But that's the first point. Yeah, I didn't learn this important terminology from my high school sex
Hmm.
ed. I learned it from a comedy show.
Yeah.
But yeah, the asexual computer repair skit. That's the first time I heard it, and I
Hmm.
was probably about 20 when I heard that. I'm 22 now.
Yeah.
Um, but I do think that it's very cool to be this age and be able to know what I am before I make any
Yep.
kind of drastic mistake or something.
Yeah.
Because there are so many asexuals throughout history, I can only imagine who have felt pressured into having sex, and the
Tons.
term wasn't even in common usage,
Yeah.
and they had to.
Yeah.
That's no fun. So I am glad to be part of this generation
There's a
that the first type
CJDX
that
video that just came out that had a word for that. It was like I forget what the word was, but it was like some kind of terrorism where it's like a group of people are oppressed through the fact that there's no word to describe their oppression. So they don't even have
right,
the
yeah,
word like the word sexual
yeah, yeah,
harassment wasn't a thing until like the 70s.
right, yeah.
So women
Yeah,
like
that's
yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah,
it's
it's
a
a good
real thing.
example.
Yeah.
So
Um,
I'm glad to be the age I am now, where I'm completely sure of what I am and know exactly what I am. I'm glad there's a term for it, and I hope to increase visibility and representation by any means possible, as much as possible. I think that's a cause worth fighting for, and I
absolutely
will
is.
literally never sell out on it.
Yeah, great. Well, keep
Okay,
going. For
all
my
right, your
answer to the
answer.
question is yeah. Mine's a little hard to say because I really I as a sort of a very anarchistic I like everybody, I want everybody to love everybody kind of a person. I am straight, but I wish I was bi. So I tried several times. I even actually had a relationship with another guy for about a month, but the and he was a great guy. I really did. Like I think that I am definitely pan romantic. Like I loved him and I had romantic feelings for him, but and I can appreciate the male form, but sexually speaking, I really only get aroused for women, the female body and parts. And that took me until yeah my early 20s to figure out because I used to it actually I was confused because I developed sexual attraction kind of later in life. Like I sort of pretended to have it and kind of like did it and talked about it with other people because I knew that I liked girls and that I wanted to like have sex and stuff. Also because of patriarchal pressure and stuff like that. But and I would look at porn and stuff, but sometimes it would kind of gross me out just because like I was just not quite ready for it. But yeah, it wasn't until I was definitely closer to like your age, like 22 or 20, maybe like 21 ish or something like that, where, or maybe even 18, I don't know. But one time I just saw like a lady and her body just, like, I literally just, like, I can't describe it. I was just like, wow. Like, it was just something that I
Yeah,
couldn't,
I hear that often. What it is, it's
yeah,
very sudden.
yeah.
It never happens to me.
Mm hmm.
Whenever I
Yeah.
see someone, I'm just like, I want to talk with them for a long time and maybe read some, but I definitely wouldn't. I don't even notice
Yes.
people's physical forms a lot of the time.
Yeah, it's
Um,
like tasting a food you've never tasted before. Like you
yeah,
cannot describe the sensation. Like if you've never had sour candy or something before and then you try it
right.
for the first time,
I,
you're just like, "Whoa, this is
yeah.
I've had no idea." Like that it's such an interesting experience.
It must be interesting to experience something new like that, but in my case, it's also very interesting to know that you will never experience
Yeah,
something new
that
like
is
that.
very interesting. Yeah.
And
I feel that way
I
about
would say
tomatoes.
that
I don't
if
think I'm ever going to like tomatoes.
I would say that if you're straight, don't be envious of someone with asexuality or anything, because
Mm,
there's an entirely different set of insecurities and hangups and just
not
like
to
general
mention all of the lack of
neuroticism.
representation.
being straight obviously carries its own fair share of hangups and issues and neuroticism, but
Mm-hmm.
being asexual, it's even worse because you do have all these insecurities and problems and things that you don't even know how to articulate half the time,
Mm.
and you can't share them with anyone in a way that will make them relate to it. So
Yeah, yeah,
it's a
literally. It's
very
like
it's a
describing
very
colors to
isolating.
a blind person or something.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Qualia. It's
Yeah,
qualia.
qualia,
Yeah.
qualia, that's the word.
Um,
Yeah.
so be glad that you have people who you
Mhm.
can
Yeah.
relate to in some capacity and know what they're going through and
Yeah.
what their time is like. Cause
That's what it is. My goal is I
yeah,
really want to have the most positive qualia of that I can without, it becoming a problem. I really like pleasure and enjoyment and love and in all its forms, platonic, tribal, all that stuff, self,
hmm
universal, romantic, everything. I just love
yeah.
love. I think that
Be
it's
glad that you
such an
can
important thing.
be glad that you can experience all five of those and
Yeah. Mhm.
don't take it for granted. Don't take it for
I
granted because
definitely
it's
will try not
you
to.
can take you can go through all five.
Hmm. Especially since I
Seriously.
also actually was lucky enough to have that brief experience with my drug addiction where I did feel very asexual, and I was just like, it was helping me getting over a breakup as well, too. So that
Right,
so
right.
you know
Uh,
that's the thing. But it
you
was
you can
cool.
experience you can experience learning from breakups. You can
Hmm.
experience what you like, what you don't like. You can learn from a negative process, whereas my negative process will just be someone telling me they don't want to be my friend anymore, and me just being like, "Oh, okay." And there's
Yeah.
not any of the heartbreak. My
It's still not
feelings are
fun
hurt, but
though.
my heart
Yeah.
isn't broken.
Hmm.
My heart isn't
Exactly.
broken because that's a romantic term.
Yeah.
Um, but I never really
Doesn't
learn
hit as
anything,
hard.
and I just repeat the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
So you can actually learn from your mistakes and learn what you like and don't
I mean,
like.
you still can. It's
Um,
just that, like you said, you don't feel heartbreak so much as you just realize that okay, well, these kind of people I probably won't get along with in the future,
I
or
kind of
vice
question
versa.
if I ever will learn from my mistakes because everyone around me operates on the same principles, and I kind of have to interact with someone, or I just will never interact with anyone. So I I keep having to enter the same type of scenario, and
If you
it
could get
just
an
keeps going and going.
asexual therapist or something like that, I bet that would be really cool.
Yeah, an asexual anyone, I
Yeah,
could relate a
really.
lot more to at least one person.
Mm.
Um, I would say it's cool that you felt a suppressed sex drive on opioids.
Mm-hmm.
That's not asexuality, but
Yeah.
in my one of my favorite books, Naked Lunch,
Hmm.
he discusses heroin addiction, and it's roughly the same. It's about the same
Talk about that.
type of detached quality.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an
So
interesting time. Yeah, yeah, definitely, like you said, suppressed sexuality rather than obviously because I was still sexual. I
right,
was just
right.
suppressed.
Imagine a lifetime like that with none of the sluggishness
Yeah.
or
It
inactivity,
can
but
seem
just
certainly like a kind
complete
of a
lack of
superpower in some ways. It can I can definitely view it that way. But I can also
it
definitely
can
see
in
the
that it can in that
downsides.
I can transcend all preconceived notions of romantic or sexual relationships, and I
Mm-hmm.
can completely transgress those in every conceivable way. But
Yeah.
on the other hand, people don't like when I do, so
Yeah.
I mean
That's
people
the other
resent
thing.
me a lot for that.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. Well,
And I have no idea why they even do.
I'm happy to know you, and I look forward to speaking again in the future, either on or off
Well, it's
stream
been
or whatever.
yes, it's been a fantastic, it's been a fascinating talk.
Yeah.
Um,
All
I'm
right.
glad I
Well,
took
Nick,
the time. Yeah.
if you
All
have
right.
anything else you want to say, otherwise we'll just get going, and I'll
No,
make sure to have all your plugs.
I think I got with all of it. Just this will be posted on your channel and
Yep.
mine. And
Yep.
yep.
All right,
All right.
and
Well, thanks
we'll
for listening.